So today, Erin and I will be talking about the importance of tracking and feedback in managing your health and behavior goals. But first, I have a few announcements. Erin, you want to do next slide?
Oops.
Okay, that one. So we added a new feature yesterday on our website. It's completely anonymous, so you can submit new topics that you want to learn more about that we can focus on in some of our personalized coaching sessions, or try to incorporate into Fast Facts or into the rest of the talks for the semester. So where the consent form section was, you'll see this new topics button. The next slide, please. And then we also added links to Walk Across Arkansas, which is a great activity to help you meet your physical activity goals, and registration is open now. And we also included a link for those of us or you in Northwest Arkansas for health and wellness opportunities in Northwest Arkansas and Washington and Benton counties. And above, I also put a hyperlink to the Walk Across Arkansas. So this is the website for Walk Across Arkansas. So this is for the entire state. This is what the website looks like. And it's not just walking, it's all about moving and meeting physical activity goals. So for those of you who have goals related to physical activity or worked on SMART goals related to physical activity, this is a great initiative. And you can do it individually or in teams. So, and your teams can be throughout the state. There are a lot of health and wellness activities ongoing in Northwest Arkansas and in a lot of counties. So if you're on the call and in a county that has a lot of activities, send us a slide or a link and we'll add it to our website. So these are just some examples of what's happening in Washington and Benton counties. The Renew You program, the Extension Get Fit program, lots of wellness resources. And then there's also Walk Across Northwest Arkansas. So next slide, Erin. So registration is open. No, is this? Yes, this is the Northwest Arkansas one, sorry. So Northwest Arkansas is a 5-week program and it's March 29th to April 30th. I encourage you to form DFEND teams because it can be done as a group or individually. Below is the link to register. It's it opens starting, I think, March 15th, but I think Anna emailed me and said it was actually starting today. It's different from the state program, and they're encouraging reporting of litter collected as part of the physical activity. Apparently this is called plogging. So you pick up litter as you're jogging or walking, is how I'm interpreting it, and to celebrate the Great American Cleanup and Earth Day. And it will be 5 weeks in April. And every Monday afternoon, they'll have a guest speaker. So there'll be Dr. McDermott, who spoke in DFEND 2.0 about hydration. Jamie McDermott, our dietitian for the project. Bryce will be speaking, and they also have for physical activity, and they also have a speaker on Earth Day about, I think, water safety and health. So next slide. So those are the big announcements. Oh, I think I'm missing a slide. Maybe about SMART goals. Is that at the end? There was a checking in slide. I might have deleted it. I was having technical issues today. But I think, our SMART goal challenge was one of the lower participation rates because it is challenging to set SMART goals. So if you didn't submit your SMART goal this week, there's still time. And I encourage you to call into one of our personal coaches or email Erin or I, and we can help you set SMART goals, because this will really help make your personal goals for DFEND more achievable. And then I'll turn it over first to you, Dr. Howie.
All right, can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, so today we're going to be talking about one of our strategies for change, actually 2 of our strategies for change, but they really go hand in hand. So we'll be talking about tracking and feedback. So if you remember all the way back to week 1, DFEND 3.0, we talked about how there's these different strategies for change that are based on research and science. And the two that we'll be talking about today are self-monitoring or tracking, which also goes together with feedback, because tracking isn't very useful if you don't at least take the time to look at it and to reflect on it a little bit. And so this taxonomy of behavior change techniques is kind of what I use as, when I'm thinking about my behavior change or trying interventions for other people, a list of all these different strategies. And they're all based in science and research. And like I said, these are the two that we'll be talking about today. Self-monitoring has really exploded in the past few years, mostly due to technology developments. So there's this whole idea of the quantified self, where we can actually measure so many different parts of our lives, not just physical activity and nutrition. And there's a website. It's kind of like a little club if you want to identify yourself as someone who follows quantified self. But it's this idea of self-tracking, and you're kind of your own little scientist with an N of 1, we would say, because you can note different changes. So maybe if you measure something for a year, you note that in the winter it goes down, in the summer it goes up. Or if you join a gym, maybe your physical activity goes up. So it's kind of like you're your own little scientist doing an experiment on yourself. This has become really trendy in the past couple of years, but it's been around for a long time. Even Benjamin Franklin was one who tracked different things in a daily journal. And again, part of it is an important part of tracking is that reflection component. And so that bottom bullet on active self-monitoring is better than passive. That feedback, that reflection is why self-monitoring seems to work based on research. And I'm just gonna start with the caveat that Jamie and I are not paid or sponsored by anybody. We try to avoid recommending, specific apps for specific fitness trackers. I will mention a couple just because they've been evaluated in the research, but something as simple as just a diary. So, a blank notebook or a spreadsheet on your computer serves the exact same purpose as any of these fancy equipment that you can buy as well. So when you're thinking about what you want to track, there are lots of different options, and it's going to go back to your SMART goal. So what specific behavior are you trying to change? And even within these different behaviors, you can be more specific. So for example, maybe your SMART goal is related to activity, but maybe really it's just you want to swim at the pool 3 times per week. So you don't need to track your minutes of physical activity. You don't need to track your steps per day. You can just log when you go swimming and for how long you go swimming. Because if you have a pedometer or a fitness tracker, it's probably not going to log your swimming anyways. But we can log those behaviors. Some of us might have more psychological goals, so things related to mood or stress or sleep. This is where technology has really been advancing in terms of some physiological measures like heart rate, blood pressure. There's new monitors that are looking at ECG or electrical waves of the heart. I saw some, they even look at brain waves. I don't know how accurate those are, but they exist there if you want to pay for them. But things like monitoring pain. So looking at pain scales, rating your pain on a scale of 1 to 10, taking your temperature. Some people have been looking at this in terms of tracking COVID or predicting if you have COVID. One we talk a lot about with our students is measuring our time or time you spend on different tasks. A lot of us have goals on productivity and things we want to get done, or just other habits in general. These pictures on the right, it's just a quick screenshot. I searched for self-monitoring in Google Play, and there are tons and tons and tons of different apps to track all sorts of different things. Some just kind of function like a general diary or journal. Some are very specific to different behaviors. So you don't want to track everything. You want to pick those things that are most meaningful for you. And it's best to just start with one thing to track. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about physical activity, and then Jamie's going to talk a little bit about nutrition tracking. This is probably one of the most common questions that I get about fitness trackers. Should I use one? Which one should I use? So we'll talk about that as we go. But just the concept of physical activity tracking in general seems to be an effective strategy when combined with some other things. So this was a research study looking at different online community weight loss programs, and it wasn't randomized, but people could choose if they wanted to use a commercial fitness tracker or not. And they just followed up with these participants over 4 years. And they found that those who had used a physical activity tracker, they lost 1% more body weight than those who didn't. And they were more likely to lose 5% of body weight, which they determined was a clinical weight loss. So, like I said, it may be just that people who chose to use fitness trackers were, more ready to change, but it does suggest that there's at least it's not bad to use a physical activity tracker. They are, like I mentioned, becoming increasingly common. There's estimates that about 10% of the population uses some type of fitness app or fitness tracker, and it's only expected to grow. The question is, how long do people use these fitness trackers, and ultimately do these fitness trackers actually improve behavior? So for the first question, this was a study of over 700 adults, and the average use of a fitness tracker was about 130 days. So about 4 months or so. They found that 3 out of 4 people were still using it out of 100 days, but only 16% were using it after 320 days. So they're not really used for the long term, I would say. When we're talking about do they actually change behavior, there's a couple of things that we need to think about. It's not the fitness tracker that's magically going to make you more active. There's lots of different types of fitness trackers, also how you use them, and what other features come along with usually the app. So first of all, you have to be motivated to want to use the fitness tracker and to use it as a feedback mechanism. So if someone just tells you, here, wear this for the next 10 days, like we do with our research participants, that's not going to get you to change your behavior. Just wearing it doesn't work. You also have to have one that you can use. So some of them are a little bit more complicated, and when you have to charge it, you have to remember to wear it. Some of them are a lot bigger than others. Some are uncomfortable. Some aren't even just wrist-worn fitness trackers. They have ones that are chest straps, ones that go on your ankle. And you have to be able to link it to the app, because most of them you have to connect to your phone. And it has to be, user-friendly enough and tracking things that are meaningful to you, which gets to point number 4. But 3, they need to be accurate. They're getting a little bit better in terms of accuracy. Again, it depends on what you want to measure. So if your behavior you're interested in is swimming, a wrist-worn, not waterproof monitor is not going to be very helpful. A few years ago, one of the common fitness trackers was actually taken off the market because it wasn't very accurate and it was very misleading. And lastly, again, the app has to be user-friendly and give you feedback in a way that's meaningful to you. So I mentioned there's lots of different things that you can track within physical activity. This was a relatively recent study that came out in 2019, looking at, does it matter what you're tracking? So they just asked people kind of about their preferences for tracking. Do you prefer, keeping track of how far you walk, how long you walk, how many calories you burn, or steps? And this study found that in general, those people who reported that they liked tracking physical activity in minutes reported the lowest levels of physical activity. They suggest some different reasons on why this might be. Typically, athletes are ones who are more interested in distance. Also, your doctor is often going to ask you about minutes of physical activity. They're the ones who are going to tell you to walk 30 minutes a day. And so that kind of rings in the head of people who maybe aren't physically active, but you want to pick the type of metric that's meaningful to you. I know last week we talked a little bit about this 10,000 steps. So I thought it was a good time to come back to this, and how 10,000 steps was really just kind of a marketing slogan from a company in Japan that happened to be 10,000 steps. And so that's where we all got this idea that we need to walk 10,000 steps a day. But more recent research has kind of gone back to this to say, well, how many steps do we actually need for our health? So Iman Lee, she's at Harvard. She's one of the leading physical activity epidemiology researchers, looked at some data of over 12,000 women and found that it was about only 4,400 steps per day that were associated with the biggest reduction in mortality. And actually, if you walk more than 75,000 steps per day, in this sample of women, they didn't see any additional benefits. So it didn't matter for mortality if you walked 7,000 steps per day or 10,000 steps per day. More recently, there's been a review of a lot of different studies, which is what this figure is of. And it finds that really there's no magic cutoff in, I need to get 7,000 steps, I need to get 10,000 steps per day, but every extra 1,000 steps that you do per day seem to have an additional benefit for your health. And it seems to level off. So I'll just look at this top line here. So you can see this is 4,000 steps, and then it goes to about 6,000 steps. And that's the biggest reduction in mortality. And then it kind of levels off. And they're kind of similar in all the different studies. So again, you want to increase your steps. More is usually at least a little bit better. But if you're not close to 10,000 steps per day, you don't have to get down on yourself. Lastly, what is the best device for measuring your activity? This was a study looking at behavior change techniques in wrist-worn wearables, so usually combined with the app. So again, these strategies for change that we keep coming back to, and evidence supports these for changing our behavior. The Fitbit Versa and the Garmin Vivo Active had the most behavior change techniques, or the most strategies that are proven by research. However, just because it has a lot of options doesn't mean that it's the best at increasing physical activity. This study actually didn't look at how well it did changing physical activity. But if you like having a lot of options and ones that are science-based, these might be some good options. But there are lots and lots of commercial fitness trackers that are available online. And so again, just reflect on what you want to measure, and you can find a relatively inexpensive device to measure it. And I'll come back and say you don't need to spend any money at all. There are lots of surveys online that you can measure different behaviors, activity behaviors, keeping a diary, simple pedometers, although now I was looking and a lot of pedometers cost as much as kind of the cheaper models of accelerometers or smartwatches. So you might just want to go with an accelerometer. Using your smartphone, a lot of them have apps. So if you keep it in your pocket, that's a great way. You don't have to get another device. But there are lots of these commercial fitness trackers that a lot of them are very accurate. Just look at the reviews and see if you can find some research on them. And this is going to be a repeat of what we talked about. I will turn it over to Dr. Brown to talk a little bit about the other side of the energy balance tracking with diet.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Howie. Next slide. So I'll talk about diet tracking, and there's a lot of parallel information to fitness tracking. Next slide. Okay. So there are a lot of benefits to tracking your food intake. It helps you recognize the positive and negatives of your daily routine. And then so tracking your food intake will also show you what you're doing well already And this is important because you want to continue these habits so you don't have to start from scratch, and then build on those great habits and take small steps to improve your eating habits. And that will help you be more successful. So I think a lot of people I've seen through the Facebook challenges are working, myself included, on increasing fruit and vegetable intake every day. So, right now I know I do a good job, like eating healthy fats and things like that, but I know I need to improve my fruit and veggie intake. So there's a lot of apps out there that will help you make these small changes. And there's a lot of science behind tracking food data. So it's been quite a few studies, but I think this was one of the bigger ones that I'm showing you on the right, that without following any particular diet, overweight people who track their daily food consumption using a free smartphone app, so I think in this one it was maybe either Lose It or MyFitnessPal, lost a significant amount of weight. Um, and what they said, this was a 12-week study, and this bar on the right just shows the starting point, actually this was six months, and then 6 months later, and this is the amount of weight they lost in I think it says kilograms. And so this gray line are people who only use the app. The orange line are people who used they only use the app for diet recording. The people in the orange used diet and weight recording. And then the people in the blue recorded diet, weight, and also got some in-person or virtual education. So you can see no matter which option, just tracking daily over 6 months resulted in weight loss. Oops. I'm trying moving on my own. So how do you start tracking? Decide how long you'll track the food you eat. So I usually recommend just start with a week so you get some weekdays and your weekend days, because people tend to be a little more indulgent or change their habits on weekends. And then the more specific and accurate you are with reporting, the more accurate your information will be. So this is where, weighing your food or using measuring cups and paying attention to portion size, because you may be making smart food choices, but maybe the quantity is a little too much. And track all the extras. So these extras can add up. Coffee creamer, so I'm always bad at tracking coffee creamer. Sugar, condiments like mayo, and is surprisingly high, in calories. Salad dressings, candy from your coworker's candy stash, drinks, etc. Because a lot of people forget to log these things because they're just instantaneous intake. But these forgotten treats can make a lot of calories, and as little as 100 extra calories a day could equate to 10 extra pounds per year. And these are some items that are also easy to cut out or substitute with healthier options. So how can you have successful tracking? Write down the food or beverage as soon as you consume it. So like right now, to help with my DFEND challenges, I just want almost in general because of society today, I always have my phone handy. So I just made sure I put the app that I use on the first page of my phone, so it's really easy to access and open up. And be really specific with the food or beverage. So the serving size, the brand, if you're drinking a latte or something like that, the type of milk that's in that latte, the serving size, where did it come from? Any alcoholic beverages you consume, because they have a lot of calories. And then this came from the Harvard Health website. So they were recommending free apps like Lose It or MyFitnessPal, because they're really easy to use, because you can scan a lot of the barcodes of the products that you're eating, and it will import directly into the app. Next slide. And then how do you use this info? So once you've done your week of journaling, you can also write this down. Step back and look what you've recorded, and search for trends or patterns or habits. So you can try to overall see how healthy is your diet. Are you eating your fruits and vegetables every day? And if you're eating them, how many servings? Because we want to aim for at least 3 to 5 servings per day. Are you eating whole grains every day? Are your foods and beverages having added sugar, and how often? Do your moods impact your eating habits? So a lot of apps, you can record your mood or how you felt that day. And are you and is your mood influencing, unhealthy snack intake? And how often are you eating on the run? Next slide. Try to speed up. So I thought this website also provided some examples of using your tracking information to set SMART goals. And so since I think that week was a challenge, here are some examples. So for instance, if you look at your food diary and you only ate 2 servings of vegetables per day, your goal may be to eat more veggies. So turning that into a SMART goal would be to eat 3 servings of vegetables per day. Or if you're ordering takeout pretty often, your goal may be to cook more at home. And then your SMART goal would be order takeout no more than 1 or 2 nights per week. So it's just um, an easy, trackable, time dependent goal. Or if you're eating a lot of snacks from the office vending machine, you want to eat healthier snacks, bring a healthy snack to work every day. Okay, next slide. So there's a lot of tools, and like Erin said, we're not endorsed by anyone. I took these from a lot of like popular press magazines and Pinterest ranking the top health apps. So I didn't always do my personal research. One that's often, recommended through extension and it's free is the Super Tracker through myplate.gov. Pen and paper are also perfectly fine, and you can download a lot of PDF files and templates for journaling food intake or even physical activity. Mobile apps, so MyFitnessPal and Lose It always come up in these ranking ones because they're free and they have a huge database. And other useful apps, there's this one called Healthy Out about helps you make healthy choices eating out. Opt Up was developed by the grocery store Kroger, and it helps you shop healthily in their store. And if you're not near a Kroger, which for those of us in Northwest Arkansas, they do have, I think, recognized codes from other stores. Tasty is a free cooking app. Yumly was also recommended because they have over 2 million recipes. And then there's another one called Fujicate, which provides a lot of nutrition education. Okay, next slide. And then one tip I wanted to leave you with, and we may address this later in DFEND3, is just paying attention to mindful eating. So putting or reflecting on what we put in our mouths or eat can influence how much we eat and how we feel when we eat, and can also influence how much or what we choose to eat. So mindful eating refers to the application of mindfulness techniques to eating, which involves non-judgmental awareness of internal and external cues that influence the quality and quantity of food we eat. And mindful eating isn't a diet. There's no menus or recipes. It's just learning about how you eat rather than what you eat and how they influence one another. Okay, next slide. And so there are also tools for mindfulness and mindful eating. So Insight Timer, I was introduced to this about a year ago. It's a lot about meditation, but they have a lot of free guided meditations around sleep, anxiety, and stress, but also lectures on food intake and paying attention to hunger cues. This one costs money, but it's called Am I Hungry? And it's a mindful eating virtual coaching app. So to focus on the behavior change. And then we talked about this one last week, and Danielle brought it up in the personalized behavior coaching session, the app Achievement, which is just for any sort of goal to help you reach your goal. Okay, so as a final reminder, we're going to start challenge 4 this week. Emma will post it in Facebook and on the website. And this is about tracking physical activity, diet, and or sleep, or any other health behavior or related to your SMART goal during the week. Tell us how you're going to track your physical activity or track your goal, and how you feel it's going midway through the week. Next slide. So that's it.